New evidence tonight that the so-called community left-wing activist group Acorn is involved in widespread voter registration fraud. In point of fact, Acorn is a left-wing special interest group that's been under investigation for literally years in various parts of the country for voter fraud and embezzlement.
Acorn's in trouble all across the country with its huge voter registration drive. Actually, 1.3 million new voters registered according to Acorn. The problem is, are they really voters? Some 5,000 applications came in, all filled out by Acorn, and there they are. They went through the first 2,100 of them, every single one of them fraudulent.
Know the full extent of Senator Obama's relationship with Acorn, who is now on the verge of maybe perpetrating one of the greatest frauds in voter history.
We were not involved. The only involvement I've had with Acorn was I represented them alongside the U.S. Justice Department.
And we've got the best voter registration and turnout and volunteer operation in politics right now, and we don't need Acorn's help.
Barack Obama goes back with his organization. It's a community organizing organization. He was a community organizer. They crossed paths back in Chicago, worked together. He trained some of them. As an attorney, he represented the Acorn group in a motor voter case in the state of Illinois, a case that he won. And in the primary campaign, Barack Obama's campaign gave $800,000 to a subsidiary of Acorn to go out and register to vote. Now, today I'm told that the Obama campaign is saying we may have paid them some money for canvassing, but in earlier emails with the Obama campaign, they did say that they paid him $800,000, a subsidiary of Acorn, in the primary to garner votes. What the Obama campaign is trying to say now is, look, we're not working with them in the general election. That was the primary. This is the general election. And these problems that we're seeing surfacing right now are in the general election. Therefore, we're not connected with Acorn.
We need a regime change now.
Hell, we want a new America.
And I believe with Acorn's help, we're going to elect a new president, and his name will be Senator Barack Obama.
I don't think that my church is actually particularly controversial.
What's going on in white America, U.S. of KKKA? Yes, the World Trade Center happened to us, and so did white supremacy happen to us.
I joined a church to worship God, not a pastor. This whole notion that he was my spiritual mentor and all this stuff.
And then I've got to give a special shout out to my pastor, the guy who puts up with me, counsels me, listens to my wife complain about me. He's a friend and a great leader.
As imperfect as he may be, he has been like family to me. He strengthened my faith, officiated my wedding, and baptized my children.
Did you know that he had made these statements before the videotape appeared?
You know, frankly, I didn't. I wasn't in church during the time that these statements were made.
I had not heard him make the offensive comments.
I did not hear such incendiary language myself personally, either in conversations with him or when I was in the pew.
No one in the church ever said to you, man, last week you missed this sermon, Reverend Wright said this, or, I mean, I think I read in your books that you used to listen to tapes of Reverend Wright when you were at Harvard Law School. So you had no idea.
I did not. Did I ever hear him make remarks that could be considered controversial while I sat in the church? Yes. Had I heard those in the church, I would have told Reverend Wright that that I profoundly disagreed with them. They didn't reflect my values, and they didn't reflect my ideals.
Do you repudiate the man? Do you repudiate the comments? Do you repudiate both?
No, I would not repudiate the man. As I said, this is somebody who I have known for 17 years. Help bring me to Jesus.
You can walk out of a church. I mean, you can go up to a pastor and say, this is wrong.
And as I said, Anderson, if I had heard any of these statements, I probably would have walked out, and I probably would have told Reverend Wright that they were wrong.
In Chicago politics, Tony Rezko has been someone to know, a player in real estate. He's known Barack Obama for 17 years and contributed thousands to his numerous campaigns. Last year, Rezko was indicted by a federal grand jury, accused of demanding kickbacks from companies that want to do business with the state.
You know, I think that, you know, we had bought a house for the first time, and you know, we were trying to figure out how to set the whole thing up, and, you know.
But while Rezko was under investigation, Obama bought a house in Chicago and a sliver of the property next door owned by Rezko's wife.
It was an above-board legal transaction. I paid more than the price of the property that I purchased.
Obama paid several $100,000 less than the asking price. Rezko's wife paid full price.
In all my conduct, there's never been any implications, including in this situation, that I in any way used my office to do favors for people, to help folks, betray the public trust in any sort of way.
Today, the Chicago Sun-Times produced a 1998 letter which the paper said suggests otherwise. Obama, then a state senator, wrote to city officials on behalf of one of Rezko's real estate deals to build a senior citizen complex on Chicago's South Side.
Lately, he's called me a socialist. To avoid being mistaken for such a sellout, I chose my friends carefully. The more politically active black students, the foreign students, the Chicanos, the Marxist professors and structural feminists and punk rock performance poets.
The Supreme Court never ventured into the issues of redistribution of wealth and sort of more basic issues of political and economic justice in the society. And one of the, I think, the tragedies of the civil rights movement was because the civil rights movement became so court-focused, I think that there was a tendency to lose track of the political and community organizing and activities on the ground that are able to put together the actual coalitions of power through which you bring about redistributive change. And in some ways we still suffer.
That business is bad for everybody, and I think when you spread the wealth around, it's good for everybody.
On this issue, general theme of patriotism in your relationships, a gentleman named William Ayers. He was part of the Weather Underground in the 1970s. They bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and other buildings. He's never apologized for that. And in fact, on 9/11, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." An early organizing meeting for your state Senate campaign was held at his house, and your campaign has said you're friendly. Can you explain that relationship for the voters and explain to Democrats why it won't be a problem?
Georgia. See, that Barack Obama, he's got some pretty bad friends.
All right, well,
am I wrong?
You are wrong.
Hi to Barack Obama. Here's what Ayers said in a New York Times article summing up the weatherman philosophy that he pretty much invented. Quote, kill all the rich people, break up their cars and apartments, bring the revolution home, kill your parents, Bill Ayers said. That's where it's really at.
Now let me ask you a question. How can you fight terrorism when you give speeches with, you sit on a board with, Axelrod says you're friendly with, and you never speak out against William Ayers?
This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood, who's a professor of English in Chicago, who I know and who I have not received some official endorsement from. He's not somebody who I exchange ideas
from. You did blurb his book, you know. No. Barack Obama did blurb Ayers' book. Was that poor judgment on Obama's part?
Poor judgment at all.
In 1995, months after the little-known Barack Obama became Annenberg Project chair, State Senator Alice Palmer introduced the young Obama as her political heir apparent. Where was that introduction made? At the home of the 60s radicals, Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. The Obama campaign again says it is just a coincidence.
In this meeting at Bill Ayers' home has been classified in many different ways. What I can tell you from two people who were actually there is, number one, former State Senator Alice Palmer says she in no way organized this meeting. She was invited and attended it briefly. And Dr. Quentin Young, a retired doctor, told us this indeed was
Barack Obama's political coming out party, and it was hosted by Bill Ayers.
Chicago. And this party was in 2003 as a send-off for him getting a job at Columbia University here in New York. So you have Bill Ayers at this dinner, the domestic terrorist, you have Barack Obama, and then you have Khalidi.
Right.
So why will they not? But the question is, they're writing about this, what happened at this dinner in the LA Times, but why will they not release the tape?
Happiness, we're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it, Obama's gonna lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it. We're gonna change the world.